Disclaimer, the following video is about the main releases of the Legend of Zelda franchise. So, to those who will choose to comment saying that I forgot Oracle of Seasons or Zelda CDI, please keep in mind that for this video, I will be focusing on the main home console releases of the Zelda series. Thank you. Hello and welcome to another episode of A Brief History. Today's episode, The Legend of Zelda. Ready, set, go. February 21st, 2000, nope. This didn't happen in 2000, it's not old enough. This is off to a fantastic start so far. February 21st, 1986, game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, known at the time for his Mario and Donkey Kong games, teams up with two other game designers whose names I'm not even going to try and pronounce to produce a brand new adventure game later to be dubbed The Legend of Zelda. This literally golden classic based on Miyamoto's childhood years of exploring Japanese forests and caves was an instant success thanks to its free-roaming bird's-eye view action-adventure gameplay and its emphasis on puzzle solving. The story of the game centered around a young boy named Link who was tasked with the oh-so-important job of saving the Princess Zelda from the evil Dark Lord Ganon. As stated previously, this game was a smash success, having sold approximately 6.5 million copies, and it was also pretty groundbreaking in multiple areas. It was one of the first games to allow the player to save their progress, a feature which we all take for granted nowadays, and it was one of the first games to truly offer gamers a full-fledged open-world environment. This world, known as Hyrule, has remained the setting of virtually all Zelda games since, with just a few exceptions. Nintendo was now faced with the puzzling decision of how to follow up such a universally well-received hit game. So, with fingers crossed and hope in their hearts, Nintendo began production on a sequel to The Legend of Zelda. And on December 1st, 1988, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link was released onto North American shelves. Zelda 2 was, in fact, a success, but unfortunately time has not been that kind to its legacy. Many people have criticized Zelda 2 for being too different from the original, what with its perspective shift and its more RPG-styled gameplay. But who cares about all that? Just listen to the music! Aw, sweet music! Okay, yeah, I'm actually getting choked by the headphones now. Okay. Adventure of Link was the final Zelda game to be released for the original NES, and it was not until 1992 that the world was given a new Zelda title. This third installment to the Zelda franchise was called The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and was the only Zelda game to be released for the Super Nintendo. A Link to the Past took the template of the original Zelda and refined every single aspect of it to near perfection. In fact, series co-creator Shigeru Miyamoto views A Link to the Past as the true sequel to the original Zelda. Following the success of A Link to the Past, the world went through a bit of a Zelda drought, not seeing another true entrance to the series until 1998, and by that time, gamers had already shifted away from consoles like the NES and the Super Nintendo and moved on to the first ever 3D Nintendo console that wasn't the Virtual Boy, the Nintendo 64.
We don't talk about that Virtual Boy no more. We've matured, we've gotten past it. Now let's move on, and let's keep it that way.
And thus, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was born, the first 3D Zelda game and the basis for virtually all 3D adventure games to follow. Essentially a 3D rework of A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time has since been regarded as the of Valdiga. What the heck just happened? Essentially a 3D rework of A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time has since been regarded as the single greatest video game of all time. So with Nintendo having released the video game equivalent of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper, it was once again time to try and follow up, and Nintendo did so by making a complete 180-degree turn. This turn led to The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, released for the Nintendo 64 in the year 2000. With a deeper, albeit less epic storyline, darker and more morbid themes, and a unique gameplay mechanic centered around reliving the same 3 days in perpetuity, Majora's Mask was, in ways, the exact opposite of what gamers expected to follow Ocarina of Time. But Majora's Mask wasn't the only big thing on Nintendo's desk in the year 2000. This year also marked the announcement of the Nintendo GameCube, and of course, it wasn't long until this new console was given its first Zelda game, subtitled The Wind Waker. Wind Waker brought back the adventurous feel of Ocarina of Time, switched out the vast Hyrule field with an even vaster ocean, and gave the entire Zelda universe a cartoony makeover that looked simply amazing. But not all was well in the Zelda camp. Wind Waker was one of the first ever Zelda games to be greeted with immediate backlash upon announcement. Many gamers were turned off by the game's colorful cel-shaded graphics, marking off Wind Waker as an insignificant kids game without even giving it a chance. But time has been very kind to Wind Waker. Since the game's original 2003 North American release, all the naysayers of the game have silenced, and the game was even given an HD remake for the most recent Nintendo console, the Wii U. Although there has not been another Toon Link adventure in the core Zelda series, the Wind Waker storyline has continued in the DS titles Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Now let's fast forward to 2006, the end of the GameCube's lifespan and the birth of the Nintendo Wii. This year marked the release of The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, the first Zelda game ever to debut on more than one Nintendo console. At least, as far as I know. Twilight Princess was the complete stylistic opposite of Wind Waker, trading in the vibrant colors for a more muted color palette, a realistic art direction, and a werewolf Link for some reason. Following the release of Twilight Princess, the world fell into yet another Zelda drought, this one lasting for about 5 years, and it was not until 2011, the 25th anniversary of the Zelda series itself, that Nintendo finally released the long-awaited 8th installment to the series, Skyward Sword, a prequel to the entire series. The future for The Legend of Zelda is currently uncertain. Nintendo has announced that there will be a new Zelda game for the Wii U, but at this time, this is all we know. But in a lineage containing many of the greatest games of all time and one of the most recognizable mascots in gaming history, I think it's safe to say that whatever Nintendo has in store will be great. I'll see you in a week, guys. DFTBA. So, with Nintendo having released the video game equivalent of the Beatles Dr. Pepper, it was one to get time to try and follow up. And so the get 180 degree turn. The turn led to the legend of the bat, related to the 2000. With a deeper and louder be about the last epic storyline, the darker about the morbid themes, and the unique gameplay mechanics centered around the reliving the same 3 days in perpetuity.